Welcome to People and Profit, your essential business briefing. Coming up, half of all workplace tasks could be done by robots in just 7 years. So how should we rethink the way we work? As Japan paves the way for its first casinos, our correspondents investigate the problem of gambling addiction in the country. And in a world where a tweet can send stock markets tumbling, why aren't investors putting more money into the safe haven of gold? First up, though, the changing world of work. A report from the World Economic Forum found that by 2025, half of all workplace tasks could be done by robots. Now, automation is already revolutionising the workforce, and in just 4 years, the Forum says that more than half of workers will need retraining. The report is somewhat optimistic. It says that while 75 million jobs will disappear with automation, 133 million new jobs will also be created. These changes will mean, though, that employers need to hire and manage their staff differently. Now, this is a challenge facing almost all industries, and some employers are already shaking up traditional corporate structures. To talk about this further, we can go to London now and speak to Jason Trost, who's the chief executive of the betting exchange firm Smarkets. Jason, thanks for speaking to us. When you hear reports like this one from the World Economic Forum saying automation is going to change things even faster than we already thought in a workforce, how does that apply to your business, and does it tally with what your expectations are, given that you work in the technology sphere?
Well, thanks very much for having me on. I think one of I think a lot of times when people talk about automation in the news media, it's presented from a position of fear, but I think there's nothing to be afraid about. I study computer science, and I think Smarkets already represents what most companies are going to look like in the future. So one of the examples is we don't have a traditional structure like a lot of other companies. And also we let engineers make business decisions. So by letting engineers make business decisions, we're able to operate a lot more efficiently. And one of the most important points about this idea of automation is it allows humans to operate on a higher level. So if you think about computers can do mundane tasks. So for example, in Smarkets, we don't book holiday manually. You don't go to somebody manually. It's an automated process. So something simple as that, the HR department can work on developing somebody's aptitude at Smarkets rather than dealing with manual stuff. So what I liked about this report is that it actually has a positive spin to it and says there's going to be more jobs. But beyond the fact that there's going to be more jobs, I think the really important point is that people are going to be able to be more creative and use their brains more, which is what humans are really good at, and use computers for automation.
And is that how you see this affecting how you're going to hire into the future? As Smarkets expands, will you be focusing, do you think, more on those creative elements or those soft skills rather than things that could be automated?
Well, you know, without oversimplifying it, you need soft skills and you need hard skills. Like humans are incredibly important, and there's no way that computers can ever replace humans. So that's a very important point. But what you need humans for is thinking about new strategies, coming up with different ways to create humans, because after all economies are driven by humans making purchase decisions. They're not about computers talking to computers. So no matter what business you're in, whether it's sports betting or whether you're delivering groceries or whether you're a politician, you need to speak directly to humans. And so a computer is never going to replace that. Everybody has this capacity to be creative. And the super exciting thing about automation is that it really opens that up from the most manual labor to the least manual labor. Automation helps everybody.
I'm intrigued by this idea that you have, more than 100 employees but no managers. How does that work in practice?
It's very complicated. I wouldn't say we have bosses, but we certainly have leaders. But the big difference between a Smarkets way and a traditional way is we let people choose their own adventure. It's a fluid system. And I like to think the power structure is bottom up rather than being top down. It's a very subtle but important point that I don't want to say that Smarkets doesn't represent socialism in the sense that everybody is equal, but I like to think that Smarkets is an equal opportunity company where anybody can do anything, but it depends on getting buy-in from other people, working with other teams. And so, if you just say we don't have bosses, it's an interesting talking point, but we like to think of what we do at Smarkets as taking the organization another step further. Just like automation takes away the manual tasks, what we're trying to do at Smarkets is tap into this human creativity and less put people in boxes and more open up what they can work on.
But does that affect efficiency? I just imagining people taking advantage of a system where they feel less supervised to do less work. Has that been the experience in any of your cases?
Well, humans are humans, and some people will take advantage and some people won't. It's not the system that will necessarily let you take advantage. It's not like people, if you have a traditional hierarchy, nobody takes advantage, and if you don't have a traditional hierarchy, it's chaos. I think in general, humans want to be good employees. They want to be contributing, and I think maybe the opposite is true, where in this non-box-like, tree-like structure, there's less places to hide, so your actions are more visible to the rest of the world. You can't get rid of people not trying to take advantage, but I think it's arguably harder in the system that we have.
One of the other elements that's interesting about how you run your company is you allow staff to set their own salaries to a certain extent. How does that work?
Basically, we run a process twice a year where you petition your peers for feedback and what they think you should make. Everybody's salary is public in the company. My salary is public. We have 120 staff. Everybody's salary is public across the company. So you can kind of help gauge where you think the natural fit for you is. But basically, you go through a process where you ask people what they think, you tell people what they think, and then you meet with a group of people and you discuss that. But ultimately, we let the employee make the final decision. In general, it's something that we're constantly tweaking it. So we have a different process every 6 months. But I'm really proud. As far as I know, we're the only company in the world that's doing this. It is possible there are other companies, but to me, it's part of experimenting with the company of the future. I think, this report cites 2025 and beyond. I think what we've done at Smarkets is create the company that most companies are going to evolve into. So I think in the future, every company is going to let employees set their own salary.
Would you be able to do this in a bigger company? If you have 120 employees, what happens when you get to 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000? Is that still going to be possible?
I think it's 100% possible. It's definitely not an easy thing to do, but I think, any big company could do this, but I think it's incumbent upon companies like Smarkets that are small and can experiment without rocking the boat too much. I think other companies will join Smarkets and start doing this more, and society will kind of get more of a feel for it. So if you think, we were talking about abstraction earlier, humans work on higher levels of abstraction. So as we figure this out, other companies will experiment with stuff. Like in the future, it will be easier for big companies to do this.
OK, Jason Trost, Chief Executive of Smarkets, thank you very much for speaking to us from London.
Thanks very much.
Well, let's turn next to Japan, where the country's parliament voted in July to legalise casinos for the first time. It's being billed as a potential boost to the economy, with investors flocking to build in Tokyo ahead of the Olympics in 2020. But the law is also seen as controversial because addiction to gambling in Japan is thought to be higher than in many developed countries. Our correspondent sent this report from Tokyo.
Powerboats with no brakes and gamblers with no limits. In Japan, boat races are extremely popular, with around 40 stadiums and hundreds of races every day. This is the lucky stand for professional gamblers. These two Japanese men place their bets every day, spending up to 3,000 euros in a single day.
I've been betting for 40 years. I started with my father when I was small. I find it very exciting. From what I win every month, I give 2,300 euros in cash to my wife, and she can spend it as she wants. The rest, I do as I pleased.
The boat races generate close to 10 billion euros every year. The Japanese government is betting on this craze for gambling to attract casinos, which are expected to boost the country's economy. But the casinos could also aggravate this addiction. The pachinko parlors, or legal gaming dens similar to casinos, are hugely popular. Because of these slot machines, close to 4% of the Japanese are already hooked to gambling, as against a little more than 1% in France.
Many Japanese people go to Las Vegas or elsewhere to gamble in the casinos, so if it's closer, it's simpler. I think around 1/3 of our clients will go to the casinos, but I'm not worried because in the end, they will come back to our gaming rooms.
To fight this addiction, the government is thinking of limiting the casino visits to 3 times a week. But the owners will be allowed to lend money to the players, a service which is banned in other countries.
Now, gold is often called the ultimate safe haven asset, but despite uncertainty over global trade and future growth, gold prices are at their lowest level in over 18 months. So what's been going on? Kate Moody's been finding out. Kate.
Well, Stephen, in the aftermath of the global financial crisis, the price of gold rose sharply as investors clung to anything that seemed solid. But while geopolitics and trade tensions have raised the specter of more uncertainty this year, gold prices have slumped more than 12% since April, hovering just above $1,200 per ounce. The decline has raised the question, is gold losing its shine? Well, prices are significantly higher than they were a decade ago because historically, the precious metal is most successful as a long-term rather than a short-term investment and a long-term balance to losses or volatility in the markets. While there has been uncertainty, stock markets have risen to record-breaking heights this year, which generally doesn't encourage a gold rush. The precious metal is traded in US dollars, which have remained strong, making it more expensive for foreign buyers. Upheaval within the industry, including company takeovers, restructuring, and production costs, have also contributed. Investors also have more options than they used to. Cryptocurrencies and cannabis have emerged as viable alternatives in some markets. Meanwhile, interest rates have been raised around the world, making gold less attractive because it doesn't pay interest, but it does cost to store and insure. It's worth pointing out that central banks themselves have become net buyers of gold in the last decade, and that demand increased 42% in the first 3 months of this year, a sign that for some at least, this safe haven is still worth stockpiling. Stephen?
Kate, thank you very much for that. Well, that's it from us for this week, but you can always contact the show on Facebook at France24 Business, or you can tweet me at NewStephen. Until next time, thanks for watching.
What do you want from your news website? France24.com, giving you easier access to information and faster for a unique experience. France24.com, the international news website.